Hey everyone, what is up, and welcome back to another episode of the Lifestyle Lifters Show. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Coach Mike Chadwick. Mike is a former paratrooper. He's a Special Forces Support Group operator, a physical training instructor for the Royal Army, and he's also an author, an entrepreneur, a coach who specializes in training tactical athletes. Mike, welcome to the Lifestyle Lifters Show. Thank you for being here.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for having me on.
Awesome stuff. Looking forward to chatting, Mike. Before we get started and learn a bit more about you and your backstory, share something about yourself, Mike, that most people do not know.
I don't think most people know me. So I started my career as a soldier. As you just mentioned there, quite politely, it was as in the parachute regiment. Spent a bit of time in Special Forces Support Group and then the Royal Army Physical Training Corps, and then subsequently left. Proved that paratroopers can actually read and ended up becoming an author. And that went pretty well. So I'm now an author and a little bit of an entrepreneur, and actually own something that probably people won't know is that I own a tech company. Strangely enough, I ended up in the tech world after the army, and that transpired into something great. And we're still building and building and building, never settling.
A lot of buckets there going on for you, Mike.
Ah,
A lot of
chaos.
different things. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's rewind it back, Mike, and just share a bit more about what actually got you into joining the army in the first place and why you wanted to do so.
Yeah, so unlike probably most people, I joined the army not for Queen and country. It wasn't through patriotism. It was literally to put food on the table for my little sister. I've said this on a few podcasts before. My mum wasn't well, and my dad wasn't around, so it was more along the lines of I had to be the bloke, I had to be the man, I had to bring bring the money home, put the food on the table, and that's what I did. I went and, in all honesty, and some people don't like me saying this, I went and found what the easiest route to bring money in, and it was you get an apprentice, and you've got to work very hard over a long period of time to earn the kind of money I would do if I joined the army and got it overnight. Or I went to sixth form college, and I can't remember what the fee was back then, but you earned a tiny bit of money per month, and so the quickest way was to join the army. I didn't realize what I was truly joining. I joined the parachute regiment and got a very big shock. I just presumed that was what the army was. And the reason I joined them was I got hold of my dad and asked him, and he said, "You got to join them or don't join them or the Royal Marines. But if you join the Paras, you get an extra £200 a month if you pass." And I was like, "Easy, let's go."
No brainer. Let's do it. And how long did it take you before you became qualified, Mike?
So the training itself, so I had a couple of choices. There's two routes to go and become a British paratrooper. Both full circle that I went and had a look at redesigning later on down my career. But the first one is as a junior soldier. So as for those who just leave school, you can go to what's known as the Army Foundation College and spend 1 year there in phase one, followed
Okay.
by 3 months or 4 months in phase two as up in Chadwick. Or you can skip that as an adult entry when 17 and above, go straight to Chadwick and do, I think it's around about between 12 and 14 weeks, not sure what it is now, phase one, followed by the similar up to around about 7 months into phase two. So it's a lot quicker to go as an adult
Hmm.
entry, but it's a lot more harder. I chose to wait a couple of weeks until I turned 17 and went down the adult entry route.
Okay.
That hit me in the face really hard. But
Yeah,
I passed quicker, got the specialist pay quicker,
sure.
brought the money home.
Yeah. And so tell me, so because you started out at 17, what kind of training were you doing at the time, Mike?
Honestly, not much. I played a decent level of football growing up, but when I was at Liverpool Academy when I was younger, when my dad left, we moved to a town. Again, it was people don't like me saying this. We moved to a town where we could get the cheapest property with wherever the council would give us. We bounced from houses to houses. My mum wasn't very well at all, so I stopped playing football completely. I moved to a town called St Helens, who do
Yeah.
not play football at all. It's not even in the PE curriculum. They just play rugby all the time. Um, so I never kicked a ball again. So when I was going to join the army in year 11 of school, I said, I'm joining the army, quickest way to get money. I started playing football again. And that's pretty much all I did. Uh, Obviously, I don't recommend that. But from the psychological point of view, my why was so strong that it didn't matter how unfit or fit I was, as long as I could hit the. Obviously, I had a little bit of a backing, genetically okay,
Yeah, yeah,
but I didn't prepare adequately as what I should have done. And 99% of the time, someone who don't prepare the way I did will fail. I just didn't fail because it was never getting rid of me. I was
no,
putting food on the table. That was my
yeah.
why. So
Really strong reason. And so, what were some of the toughest challenges, Mike, you would have done going through the army?
the basic training was outrageous for me. Struggled the whole way through. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, so basic training would be the one. It was a big struggle for me because I didn't prepare adequately enough. So I think 65 people started, and I think there was 9 originals at the end. I was the youngest by a long way, but I survived. And only post that, I started realizing the benefits of actually putting a little bit of effort in external to that in order to ensure that I never feel that way again. And a lot of things happened over my career whereby I got, I struggled with something and I thought that'll never happen again, ever. So you can make mistakes, you can get things wrong, you can fail, but you fail once. And then if you don't learn from it, then you're a stupid man. So that's exactly how I went through life and ensured that whatever happens, it's okay to fail, it's okay to fall down, but we don't let it happen again. We do everything in our power to ensure that we evolve from that, and we work extremely hard to never feel that way again.
yeah, yeah. Okay. And when you were saying just basic training there, Mike, just for any of our listeners out there, what would like a typical day of training actually look like inside?
Our basic training in the parachute regiment is brutal. It's absolutely ruthless. It's not as bad as what it used to be, obviously, and there's always that way. And they always say, "Oh, you've never had it as bad as what we had," but things have changed. I'd like to feel that I've played a small part in the way that the army now
Yeah,
trains its way. But back then, it was just survive, absolutely survive every day. Get up, survive. Just ensure you last another day. Take a day at a time. You then have a physical testing week somewhere in there that you prepare all the way forward. You pass that and you earn everything. What's really important about the paras is that you earn absolutely everything. Even when you pass, you're still looking to earn the next thing and the next thing, from the belt that you wear to how high you
wow.
put your sleeves to how where your berry sits on your head to getting a tattoo. It's everything you possibly think of is earned every step of the way, which is incredibly powerful. And it's there's always something, and I think that's a really strong modality that the paras have above a lot of other people. Is that I have the notion that education can't be completed, and neither can seniority or the way that your physical ability. There's no completion, there's no end point. You just keep going. You can hit biological tipping points, but there's always more. You can always squeeze more. And I think the way the paras do that in regards to earning at every step of the way is really powerful, to think that you're not done. You're well done. You've just passed. You ain't finished yet. There's more. You can be something else. You can go greater. You can go one more. And there's always a little bit of you earn something at every step. So someone's always fighting to get more and more, which I think is really a really powerful modality and something you can take across to every walk of life.
Can you read that? Can you learn that in a book, Mike? Or is that just from doing it, learning from it, adapting from it, and getting that bit better? That
Um, no, you can
resilience
learn.
that you're kind of speaking about there.
No, you can learn that. You can learn it. So there's not many things we can't learn. The body is and the mind, where the mind is in fact the muscle. But let's just talk about the body is the most ingenious thing in the world. It's incredible. It is so powerful. It's this incredible modality whereby it will adapt to anything, anything. If you put in the work and you allow adequate recovery, then your body will adapt. And that's the same with the mindset. It's the same with absolutely anything. You can train, you can develop into anything that you want it to be. You just have to have a little bit of accurate prescription and apply effort, and you'll be okay. And I genuinely believe that you can learn that.
Wow. Okay. And so talk me then through, Mike, how the army were trained when you were there versus when you stepped in. What kind of changes did you hope to implement from the get-go?
So my initial thinking was that you earn the right, like I've just mentioned, you earn the right for everything. I learned that. So I put that into a physical context whereby when I went through, it was volume heavy, volume, volume, volume. Everything was just
Yes.
about movement, constantly moving. There was no foundation. The most likelihood of you failing training was through injury. And the reason he was injured is because people didn't build a foundation. They had no, there was no base to build upon. They just turned up and you got on the treadmill and you just kept going and you kept going. And oh, well done, we'll add more and we'll add more. My whole idea and philosophy of coaching was to provide a foundation. And then you can throw whatever you want on top of these recruits and these soldiers. You can do whatever you want to them because we know they'll never break. We may not get it right from an optimizing human performance point of view, so they might not go and progress as what you want, but we can just move left and right of that. But what we do know is that they'll never, ever break. So that was the first thing that I was wanting to bring in, was that you earn the right. I used to call it earning the right to a thrashing. You earn the right to struggle. So what we do is we treat these people like tactical athletes. That's where the words came from. That's how I drew that philosophy on it, is I wanted to treat people like tactical athletes, because you go to any sports club, any football club, rugby club, whatever around the world, is that they have these things in place where they treat everybody like an athlete. They live like an athlete. They sleep, eat like an athlete, and they can showcase that on the pitch and perform that way. What's different, that's what I wanted to do, was say, well, we're the same as that, but only it's not from a sporting context. We don't lose pride. We don't lose points. We get this wrong, we lose a life. Someone gets hurt. So I wanted to say the seriousness of this is that if we don't get this right, if we don't treat people like athletes, because it's a requirement for their occupation, then we're in serious trouble. So I wanted to change everyone's mindsets as being like, you are a soldier, but I want you to think like an athlete. Because if you start talking to people like athletes, they start acting like athletes. And I know you sat in the presentation I delivered at the
IFS.
At IFS, International Fitness Summit. And I spoke about calling people clients. And I explained I have no clients, none, not one client. And I could see people looking, well, why you stood up there? And I explained that you treat someone like a client, they act like a client. They pay and they want to receive goods. If you treat people like athletes, you talk to them like athletes, then all of a sudden they start believing and thinking and acting like an athlete. From a nutrition point of view, would an athlete eat that? From a recovery point of view, would an athlete do that? All of a sudden the mindset has changed and you're getting this incredible product and this buyback from the athlete, because they believe that they are something. And once you believe that you're an athlete, you want to grow. Perpetual growth is an incredibly powerful thing. You want to become better than who you used to be. And that's why I do now with every single person. Doesn't matter what their aim is, doesn't matter what they want to do in life, whether that's they want to go and pass UK Special Forces selection, or they want to just get up off the couch and walk 1K without getting tired. They want to walk to the shops and back without getting tired. They're an athlete. From this day forward, they're an athlete. I'm going to treat you in exactly the same as way. I'm going to treat whoever you are getting off the couch the same as my UFC athletes, the exact same way, because you deserve that. And if you want to be better than who you used to be yesterday, then you're an athlete. And from this day forward, I want you to think like an athlete. And all of a sudden, when you start thinking that way, results start flying through the roof.
Yeah. Developing, shaping their identity almost, and how they actually see themselves.
100%, yeah.
Yeah. And tell me then, Mike, so when you mentioned that everything needs to be built upon a base, and you establish the base first and you build things up from there, what were some methods or means that you actually did to do that? Like, did you have criteria that you need to match this criteria before we can add this progression? Or what process or system did you have in place?
Testing. So before we do any sort of programming, we must work out where that athlete is. So one of the things that I do is I get to know the athlete, I get to know the current ability, and then I see how they react to physical training. So we have three things there. And once we start, I'm a very data-driven coach. So we can't move forward unless we have a piece of data to showcase where they've come from. Once we know where they've come from, it'll come full circle later on. But testing begins by understanding the athlete, their current ability. What it also does is sets the formalities that, okay, this shit is real now. I'm testing now. So athletes do. And what that does, it provides a marker. So in like 4 to 5 weeks' time, if we've done our job right and we have accurate prescription and they've done their job right and they applied effort, they're going to be a different person. So when they go and retest, which is known as perpetual testing, they compete against the old version of themselves.
Yeah.
Not only are they now increasing athletic potential because they're competing, they've got someone to compete against perpetually, but it also provides us new markers to then provide new training programs. So the whole concept was we have to test, we have to provide a baseline. And once we have testing numbers, we can then work out all sorts of prescription from that, from working in percentages with perception and zones, etc. But it all starts from understanding the athlete's current ability. So that was the first thing I had to bring into the military. So previously in the military, what happened is they perform an annual fitness test and the results get put on a piece of paper and get slided under your drawer and we move on. And I was like, well, what do we do with those numbers? Nothing. They pass or fail. If they fail, they go on remedial PT. And what happens if they pass? Nothing. And I was like, well, we're inundated with data here. Do you know anyone not realize how powerful this is? We've got so much data where we can basically go, well, if they can do that, the likelihood of them getting injured is this. Let's start
Sure.
applying
Wow.
data fields and percentages and saying, we've got millions of data fields here from all over the country. We should be the go-to organization for every research and development field in the world to come to us and go, can we please have a look at your data and try and work out something? It's so powerful. And that's where I wanted to go down. And so it all started with testing. And then obviously we then moved on to programs. We now have the catalyst to program from. And what then happened was I wanted to treat these people like tactical athletes. So in a sporting organization, let's utilize football, is they don't just have the physical development, what my field was. They have the tactical and technical side of life. So I split development up into 4 ways: physical, psychological, tactical, and technical. From a sporting context, your tactical and technical side is, your small-sided games. You're doing your tactics for the following game. That still costs energy, and you're still conducting physical activity because you're moving, running, and adjusting yourself with the ball. So for me to program, I have to take that into consideration first. And what you do on the pitch or what my MMA athletes do on the mat, that's the most important. In order to get better at your sport, you need to do your sport.
Yeah,
so
of course.
What I try to explain to the military is that our programming must align around their soldiering ability. The soldiering was the tactical and technical side of life. Let's mold that into everyone's development plan. And the way that we had to do this was through what, as you know, the minimal effective dose, whereby we do the bare minimum to get the biggest bang for your buck. Because if we just keep adding volume and volume and volume, when their tactical and technical side of life is adding volume, 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 it's a recipe for disaster. Something has to give. Everything costs energy, and we aren't inundated with infinity amounts of energy. So something has to give. So we did the minimal effective dose, and it had to come through individualizing training. I explained that every soldier is different, and therefore their pathway must be different. The aim may be the same, whatever that looks like, the commander's intent, whatever the aim is. How each individual gets there should be very different. So that's how I did it. I wanted to test them, and then I wanted to provide individualized training programs, utilizing the minimal effective dose to provide training that supplemented their tactical and technical side of life.
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah, repeat. And was there a specific reason then after doing that for a couple of years, Mike, that you decided to leave?
I started coaching elite athletes external to the military. I just had a little girl. As I mentioned before, previously to that, parachute regiment, SFSG, I spent 3 weeks out of 4 weeks every month away. Afghan tours for 7 months, and it was I wanted to go home. I wanted to be there for my little girl. More important, I wanted to go home every night, and I thought it was really important. So I subsequently left, but maintained my foot in the door by transitioning over to the reserves. And so I've almost still do the same thing, but I go home every night to my little girl, and now I've got a little boy as well, so that would enhance even more if I did stay in. So that was the reason, mate. That's the main reason.
Lifestyle, family, and so imagine then, Mike, that because a lot of the listeners here, they wouldn't necessarily be tactical athletes as such, but with all of that being said, imagine you were working with somebody like a busy professional and they work a 9 to 5 job and they have a goal of I'd like to do 5 to 10 pull-ups, we'll say. I want to do 10 pull-ups and I want to run a 5K inside 22 minutes, 30 seconds. I'm able to train 4 times a week for 1 hour. How would you what would your process be for getting that athlete the best possible results?
So the first thing I would do is get to know the athlete, and I want to know why. Why do you want to do these things? Why the pull-ups? Why do you want to do that? And why is 16 hours a month okay in order to do that? Why are you applying only those hours? Where does this sit from a priority list? Why is it so important to you? So whenever I take athletes on, the initial question is why. The first chapter in the book is Find Your Why. And it's really important that someone has a why that's very, very powerful. And when it is, they will do absolutely anything to go and achieve it. Because I'm one of these coaches that I am all in or nothing. And that for a lot of people, they do not need me in their life because I'm too much for them. I'm fully in, I'm fully involved. I take aims really seriously. And I will do absolutely anything to win. So if this person comes to me and goes, I need this because, and I'm like, wow, let's do it. I mean, I want to do this because I want to increase my lifehood. I want to be there for my kids. I want to grow a little bit. I want to ensure that I don't die young. I want to increase health to be there for my family. Whatever that why is, I don't know what it is, but once that's powerful, I'll go, okay. Then what I'll do is I'll start breaking down their life. This is what I deem battlefield. Not as military centric as what it sounds. It's basically your environment. By getting to know someone and an environment and buying into the process this deep, they buy into you because they're going, okay, this guy's taking me incredibly serious. He understands that there's not just 16 hours in the month in order to train. There's a whole host of other things that are happening. That 9 to 5 becomes their tactical and technical side of life. Cost energy. It requires build-up. It requires energy from a mental point of view. He may be sitting for a long period of time, so hip flex is going to be nice and tight, back's going to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I then need to take that into consideration. What does he do on the weekend? Got any holidays booked? What have you done previously? And I start building a picture on this person. And then we go and test. We put some things in the calendar. We go, okay, so now what we need to do is I now know you. I now know your why. I know what you're about. I know what you want to achieve. Now let's go and do it. What I then do is I formalize a testing to, first of all, as I mentioned, make sure that this guy knows that this is going to be serious. We're going to run at this wholeheartedly. We're going to do everything in our power to go and achieve those pull-ups and achieve that 5 kilometers. We will win. We will win. I want you to know that we're going to win. They test. I then sit down and I write a program from scratch. I don't ever send out any generic programs. I write everything from scratch. That will fit around their life. If he's got 1 hour to train, then it'll be prescribed within 1 hour. Utilizing the minimal effective dose, targeting the areas that he requires, building the foundation, but increasing and implementing daily habits. So I know we've got 1 hour, but I know there's so much more that we can do with that hour. So I know he can hydrate in work. I know he can stand up off his desk. He's got a break in work. I know that he can go for a little walk around the block. He can extend those hip flexors if that's going to be the first problem for the 5 kilometer. There's an abundance of things that we can implement through daily habits. I know that if he sat down all day, then we need to increase core stability because we need proximal stiffness for distal movement. So whenever we want to do those pull-ups, that core is going to play a huge role. And if those glutes are switching off and the core is not nice and stable, we're going to struggle when we start going on the 5 kilometer. So I'm going to get into the daily habit in the morning. I'm going to say, right, here's what we're going to do. It could be something as simple as, well, I utilize the McGill Big 3+1 for all my core stability. If anyone who's listening hasn't looked at Dr. Stuart McGill's Big 3, incredibly powerful, really good tool to move.
That's the side plank, the bird dog, and the
thoracic curl up.
The curl up. Yeah. And what's your
really
plus one for that? I'm curious, Mike.
So the plus1 is something that transitions over into the subsequent session. So an example of that could be if we was going to squat, that requires triple flexion and extension at the ankles, knees, and hips.
Yeah.
We can apply core stability by hanging off a bar in a pull-up motion and bringing your knees up to your chest. You look at that from a side view, from a biomechanical point of view, it's the same as a squat.
Same as a
But
squat.
we're
Yeah,
applying,
gotcha.
so it's the transition over to what we're going to do in the subsequent session. That's a
Specificity
plus one.
almost. Yeah, gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
all of us, I'm ingraining these daily habits into this person's routine. Another thing would be to go and increase ankle mobility and stability. And we can do that through something as simple as single leg calf raises. When you wake up in the morning, we habit stack.
yeah,
When you get up out of bed before you, or as you check your phone, as you brush your teeth, I want you to do 15 times 3 single leg calf raises. May sound very simple. It'll take a few minutes of this man's day, but we do that for 100 days, and that's 4,500 single leg calf of his body weight going through his single leg calf raises. It's going to enhance our ability to run. It's going to stabilize him. It's going to get the ankles nice and mobile in the morning first thing. But more importantly, a habit becomes a ritual. And what's important about habits and rituals is that the moment shit hits the fan and the moment something doesn't go right, we revert back to our habits. We go back to what that original start state was. And if we've ingrained those habits as a ritual every day, this is what I do. Whoever this guy is, that's what I do. That's the person I am. I train at this time every day. I know that when I brush my teeth, I'm doing calf raising. I know I do the McGill Big 3+1 before I do every single session. The big 3+1 started as a core stability. What I realized straight away as it transitioned into the psychosocial element of development, that it made people athlete ready. So the habits sets the scene that I know I'm going to work hard next. My body knows what's coming now because I've just walked into the gym. I'm not even thinking about the session. I just get onto the mat and I start doing it. Straight away, the body goes, all right, athlete ready, let's go. I'm going to compete
almost
now.
like priming, Mike,
Prime,
priming the
let's go.
body.
I'm in.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how I was starting to do things, and I started to realize there's a bigger picture here than the physiological adaptations that we grow. So that's what I would do to this man. I would ingrain daily habits, and I would create a program that sits around his lifestyle, because that provides us two things. The daily habits provide us availability because his body won't break. Understanding his environment and providing programs that sit in around that 9 to 5 creates sustainability because I know we can do it. So it's never going to clash with anything. So we have availability and sustainability. He will grow significantly.
Unreal. Awesome. I love that approach. I love that. And so, what are some of the most common reasons then do you feel that people don't accomplish their goals, Mike, specifically around injuries? Is it a case of trying to do too much too soon? Or what would you say yourself?
So injuries, no. So we can have repetitive strain injuries, or we
Yeah,
can have trauma injuries. Trauma, there's not much we can do about it. Someone falls off a step, you trip up, you fall over when you're out having a night out, whatever it looks like. There's trauma. There's not much we can do about it. The body is a little bit stronger, so it can withstand it. If you get hit by a car, there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. Now, repetitive strain injuries are avoidable. So that's where you pull a hamstring, or I don't know, you get stuck at the bottom of a squat and your back goes, or whatever it looks like. These can be avoided through strength, through a foundation of strength. They can't be completely mitigated, but we can pretty much minimize them as best as possible by increasing that foundation of strength. So that all comes back to
your baseline.
the basics, back to the
Yeah,
baseline, back to everything that we do in order to do. And I know this works because I took loads of different demographics, from the oldest people in the military to the youngest people in the military, implemented these habits and these daily routines and these prep for session workouts, and implemented them and had next to no injuries, and which has never been done in the parachute regiment, most definitely.
yeah. It sounds like what you're saying, Mike, essentially is you're microdosing things throughout the day as well. That it mightn't just be the hour in the gym, but it's what you're doing outside of that can actually have a huge compounding carryover onto your health, your longevity, and your results, I guess.
Yeah, and this person, let's go back to the analogy of the person in the 9 to 5. He's sat there, he's doing his daily job, he's on his laptop, he's doing what he needs to do in order to bring food into the table, most important element. But he's also thinking like an athlete. When it hits lunchtime, he knows that he needs to have a consideration about what he's eating, because he's got a goal, and we set that, and we set aims, and we go and hit aims. He knows that. We made a deal. That's the deal we made in the start. That's why I found out his why. We shake on it and we go, this is what we're going to do. He's an athlete now. So he's hydrating throughout the day. He's, what he does with his food and his hydration and his movement up off the chair is really important. And he believes that. So these are the microdose and he's doing it. What people often forget is that words are worthless without execution. I can provide you the best program, the most accurate prescription in the world. But if the athlete doesn't buy in, then it's worthless. Yeah. So what's really important is that they know that they, at the end of the day, are going to be the athlete in the arena. It's going to come down to them. What they do with that time and their bodies is on them. Only they can control that. I can give you a kick up the arse when you need it. I can give you the right words at the right time. But you have to react. You have to go and do that. And as long as they know that, and that's something I set out within 10 minutes of having a conversation with someone, I make sure that they know that I'm going to over deliver every time and I'm going to expect that back. And it's really important that we're mutual in that and we run at this as a team. Growth is a team project and we're going to do this together. I will run through walls for you. I will do absolutely anything to ensure that you go and hit your aim, but I need the same back from you.
Awesome. And just slightly segueing, so Mike, learning a bit more about you and your current training. What's your current week of training or training split at the moment even look like?
So normally jump off the desk. I like to run on a Monday. I've realized over time that you can't both be the best athlete in the world and the best coach in the world. This is where I think PTs often fall down, is that they don't know who they are. They get confused that their athletes or clients, if they call them, like to consider what they do. And they think that that's important, at how much they lift, when it's not. What's the important thing is how much can you make your athlete lift. So my workouts have gone away from very performance-based. I mean, it's gone back into performance-based because there's a lad who's coming back to me who's Guinness World Record holder for running for a marathon. And I was training with him when we was going through PT course selection. And oh my God, he's an absolute machine. But he's full circle now. He's done his Guinness World Record
Wow.
running. He's now started CrossFit. Oh my God. And this
Oh,
guy's an
talk
absolute
about
machine.
go from one extreme, yeah.
Oh, he's disgusting. So anyway, he's turned up, started CrossFit, qualified for the High Rocks World Championships of his first iteration. These people are just going, I've been training for like 10 years, and who's this guy? So anyway, he's dragging me along with all these events now, and I'm the type of guy who just goes, let's do it. I mean, he's just set me up for, we're going to climb Everest, up and down Snowdon to climb the height of Everest. I'm competing in some CrossFit championship next week. I just turn up now and we'll do it. But my main aim now is just to be healthy. I want to live longer. I want to go and be able to do this stuff for as long as I possibly can. But more importantly, the moment my little girl wants to do ballet on a Saturday, you better believe I'm ready for that. If she wants to go and play football, I'll be hunting up and down that pitch playing. When she kicks that ball, I'll be good to go. Whatever they want to do, my babies, I'm in. I'm fully in. And I never want to be that parent who goes, do you know what, my back's a little bit off today. I can't do that, sweetheart. Sorry. That's what I think now. I train to be around.
Do you have any idea what's to come next week at the CrossFit competition?
No. So apparently, so I got just got sent an email saying, you need to make sure you sign up to this. And I was like, what's this? And then a follow-up text off Gary saying, mate, I just subscribed to this. And I was like, all right, fuck it. Let's do it. See what happens.
Let's do it. Yeah. Awesome.
I used to have a huge fear of failure. And now I just think, how great can I be? What's the worst that can happen? Let's just go and find out how great I can be in that day. It's something I don't do as much as what I should do. I very rarely go and do any sort of CrossFit WODs. I go and bury myself and we do functional training, but never. So if there's anything in there that's like, I don't know, like kipping pull-ups and stuff, I just do strict pull-ups. So I'm going to get found out straight away. And I'm just like, do you know what? See what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of your favorite exercises, Mike, for upper and lower body? If you were to pick 2 to 3 of each.
Love squatting. One thing I love to do, so full body then, so upper and lower, is I love the Olympic lifting side of life. It's very technical, so it's very hard to go and deliver that. So for general population, it's very hard for us to prescribe that because it's very technically based. But for upper body, pull up. There's nothing better. You can do it from absolutely anywhere. It's a real, it's a test of it should be really, everyone should be able to do a pull-up. I think if you're going to go and do something, if you're going to start a gym routine, one of your aims should be, I want to be able to do a pull-up. you should be able to lift your body weight up. And then for lower body, you can't look any further than, I love front and back squat. I just think it's really important. It's so functional. It crosses over to every walk of life. And I just think it's really, really powerful. A really good one that's often neglected, though, from a lower body point of view, which is we would do in every single walk a day, is just a simple step up. My height slightly lower than your knee.
Yeah.
Adding load, which is, again, is really important to add load, add resistance, is a step up. And that gets the glutes absolutely firing. You need those bad boys every day of your life. Really important. I would always advocate. They're in every single one of my programs.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on, I'm curious, reverse step ups?
Good to go. It's functional by nature. It's something I don't often prescribe, but just thinking of the movement now, there's no such thing as a bad movement, which is really, really pure. You see all these TikToks and Instagrams go crazy about never ever do this for back, never deadlift. I'm like, this guy's a doctor. What is he doing? Like, so do we just stop picking things up?
Yeah.
Do we just never pick anything up, like, ever off the floor? Because that's exactly what a deadlift is. I just think there's no such thing as a bad movement in this world. There's only such thing as bad prescription, and we can move wrong. But again, going back to the original question, we can teach that. We can learn, and we can disregard old habits and create new great habits. But there's no such thing as a bad movement. Every single movement is good, because that's what our bodies are capable of doing.
Sure. Awesome. Just like, yeah, absolutely. There's no such thing as a mandatory exercise either. A back squat might be fantastic, but for somebody who has a cranky, who might have had a lot of wear and tear, or for whatever reason they're not able to squat optimally, it doesn't mean you have to put a barbell on your back. You might regress that to a goblet squatter, some variation where they're still doing the movement, but it's a slight regression from it.
Yeah.
So just to wrap it up, Mike, we'll go into a few rapid fire Q&A, and then we can just talk a bit more about your book, The Red On Revolution, and also your socks as well, which is really interesting. Just starting out, so we've just five short questions, Mike. What's one new habit you've implemented in the last year?
So my habits look like, so I have every single morning is my family, followed very closely. The moment I go into work, it's athletes first. I have that mindset every time I walk into work. My habit is I sit down and I cover all bases of athletes. Athletes come first, no matter what I do. That's my biggest habit. I walk in and athletes come first before I get a coffee, before I do absolutely anything. They're the most important.
Gotcha. Okay, awesome. When you hear the word successful, Mike, who's the first person who comes to mind?
Is it strange that nobody came to mind? Not one person jumped out. So what is success? That's I guess this isn't a quick fire round, because
How would you define success? So,
time. My success is time. That's my currency. Is all I want in life is time with family. So success to me means that I've done okay in something that's allowed my time to be elsewhere with my family. So that's what my success looks like. That's all I want in life is time.
Awesome. Mike, if you could go back in time then, what's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self?
Well, my knees creak, my back gets sore, my hips go, because I didn't do the things that I program now back in the day. It would build the foundation, prepare adequately for the shit I'm about to put my body through. At 17, that's probably what I would go and tell him, is that I put myself through hell for X amount of time in basic training and beyond, and didn't prepare for that. And that's something that I now would like to implement onto everyone I ever put through. One of the biggest programs, the one that got me probably the biggest award of all, when I was on the Queen's Birthday Honours list in 2019, was to redesign and redevelop the training program for adolescents in the military. That found the Army Foundation College. So that's something that I implemented straight away, because I was probably sat there writing it. I wrote it in the pub actually, but I was sat there with cranky knees when I wrote it.
Okay, interesting. And just for second last one for somebody with cranky knees, Mike, what would be your top three exercises for them to do?
So knees normally are derivative from somewhere else.
Yeah,
Primarily, people often get bad knees
hip and
because they've
ankle.
got weak glute med.
Okay,
Going back, so you've got abduction, which is incredible exercise, but go back to that original thing I said before, step up. Really incredible, really powerful, and you can do it anywhere. People often get it wrong because the step up height is too high. What's really important is it goes just below the knee. And what's more important is the height's not important, it's the load you apply. And so obviously creating that proximal stiffness with the core, but having that drive up with the knee is really, really powerful. So I'd run away with that. Step up is the most important.
step up. Awesome. Okay, and last one, Mike. What is one question you wish that people asked you more of?
How are you today?
How are you today?
No one ever asked that. Everyone always wants something. No one ever says, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I get that. We're so fast in life at the moment that
Yeah,
you call your friends or you call your family and something is, "You all right?" It's such a powerful tool. It's one of the things that we often neglect in coaching as well, and it's something I whenever I coach other coaches is in regards to um, there's nothing more powerful from a coaching context than asking someone very simply, how do they feel today? Because that can
yeah,
determine what happens next. So whenever we're talking about prescription, logistics of physical training, what's really important is how are they today? Because if the answer's shit, then what you program them is probably going to follow. So it's really important you have this almost athlete readiness questionnaire whereby if they say, I'm absolutely great, let's go on firing, you may be able to intense something. You may be able to increase whatever you're about to do because this guy's on it today. Let's get something out of there. Let's overload. But if they're not, let's digress
yeah.
so that we can still get those lovely feelings that we get from the gym. But we just have to regress a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. One of my all-time favorite coaches, Mike, Joe DeFranco, he always says he writes his programs in pencil, not in pen. In other words,
Nice.
it's open to change based on the readiness. No, that is awesome. That's brilliant, Mike. Look, first of all, I really appreciate your time. Really enjoy this conversation as well. And for any of our listeners out here, Mike, who want to learn a bit more about your book, about your sock, your red on socks, along with your coaching and what else you have to offer, where's the best place to send them? And would you mind just sharing a bit more information about what exactly you offer?
And so you can find me on any social media handle. Instagram's the main one. Coach Mike Chadwick. You can ask me anything on there. I
I'll
genuinely
link that in the show notes.
thank you, mate. And then there's coachmikechadwick.com, which forwards people into the coaching side of life. As you rightly said there, I am an author now. The book is called The Red On Revolution, has my philosophies in coaching. It drives everything I've just mentioned there. I pour my heart into absolutely everything. But what's really important is it's not just my point of view. You don't have to listen to me and my mundane half Scouse voice for for the full duration. Every 40 minutes or so, because that's what psychology tells us to switch it. You get a new voice in. So I'll talk about strength, and I'll go, okay, well, here's the science. Here's how I got that opinion. And if you don't believe me, here's the world's strongest man. I talk about mental resilience, and you get Ant Middleton comes on, or some of the SF boys. I've got UFC guys in there, business owners in there. There's doctors. There's the British. There's the military's fittest female in there, talking all about performance, talking everything that we can possibly consider from a coaching point of view, and how we can get the best out of you. So that's randomly it's a bestseller now, which is I'm very
Amazing.
proud of. Thank you, mate. And then the socks, the most craziest thing. I still find
Yeah.
it very strange, by the way, that I sell socks. I find it very
I
weird,
heard
but
well I know why you're doing it because I heard you speak about it on James Smith's podcast. But do you want to just share a quick 60-second overview as to why socks above all else?
So in the same way we move, the knee drives the movement. There was a problem. I was creating these monsters. I was writing the best physical development programs and had the highest pass rate across every arduous course in the country. But then all of a sudden, I realized that two of the fittest guys I ever had a problem, and it wasn't fitness; they had blisters. And I thought, is that really where we're at in this day and age? That blisters are going to make them fail. There must be a better way. And that's how it grew. And I created a solution. I put a load of science into socks.
Wow.
And it changed the game completely. And now, we have sold thousands and thousands of pairs of socks. I hadn't had a single problem with blisters. And then now they've passed every arduous course in the country. Pretty much everyone in the military is wearing them, but they've transpired into other outlets, sporting context, to gym goers, because they're extremely comfy, they're extremely breathable. And, there's a lot of companies out there try and squeeze an extra fiver out of you at the till to try and sell a pair of socks. The only reason we do, that's all we do. And we put every bit of science and research into them to ensure that they are the best sock in the country. And now we're the fastest growing sock company in the country.
Oh, amazing, man. And there is nothing better than wearing a nice, fresh, comfortable pair of socks. And there's probably
Exactly.
nothing worse than going for a run and your freaking socks are absolutely soaked and you
Oh,
still have a couple of kilometers left. Awesome. Mike, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on, for hopping on. I'll post a link to your IG in the show notes there. So for anyone looking to learn a bit more about Mike, about working with him one-to-one, about his book, about his socks, I'll post a link to his Instagram. And Mike, thanks again for hopping on. I really enjoyed this conversation.
absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.